How are post-separation support and alimony calculated? When calculating post-separation support and alimony, the trial court has a lot of discretion. In the context of a PSS or alimony case, we have two parties. We have a dependent spouse and a supporting spouse. The dependent spouse has to prove that they have a monthly shortfall. In other words, their income is insufficient to defray their monthly expenses. Conversely, the dependent spouse must also prove that the supporting spouse has a surplus. In other words, their income exceeds their monthly expenses at the end of the month. They have extra money that they can contribute to the benefit of the other spouse. After the court determines that there is an entitlement for spousal support, the court then is going to look at the amount and duration of support and determine what would be appropriate. To do that, the court is going to have each one of the parties complete a financial affidavit. What is a financial affidavit in a divorce? A financial affidavit is just a fancy term for a budget. So the budget will first of all identify all of the income of the spouses. So for example, the dependent spouse will complete a financial affidavit showing all of his or her income and then all of his or her monthly expenses. Those expenses will include all expenses, including the cost of housing, rent, utilities, car payments, automobile insurance, cell phone, health insurance, household expenses like food and groceries. All of those expenses will go on a monthly budget, and the dependent spouse will have to prove that they have a shortfall. Then we will take a look at the financial affidavit for the supporting spouse, and after we consider all of their income and expenses, the dependent spouse has the burden of proving that the supporting spouse has a surplus. After the court determines the surplus of the supporting spouse and the shortfall of the dependent spouse, the court can then determine the amount of support that is reasonable each month and then the duration. Post-separation support is intended to be temporary spousal support, and it generally remains in place until there's either an award or denial of alimony. The duration of alimony is most often determined based on the duration of the marriage. Probably the most common computation would be to say that alimony is appropriate for 1/2 the duration of the marriage. So, for example, if the marriage was 10 years, then it would be appropriate for the supporting spouse to pay 5 years of alimony. If the duration of the marriage was 20 years, then 10 years would be an appropriate duration for alimony. Sometimes when a marriage lasts for more than 20 years, the court will award what is called permanent alimony. These are just guidelines to consider when assessing an alimony case.